A text message from my mother read, "Darling, please come over at 7. We have something special planned." I stared at the words, my stomach twisting with that all too familiar sense of unease. After 29 years of experience, I knew that something special from Nina usually translated to trouble neatly wrapped in an appealing package. My name is Valerie, and I'm the designated family fixer, the one who patched up my brother's failed business attempts, covered my father's gambling debts, and salvaged my mother's overdrawn credit cards. Despite managing a thriving career in finance, a fact they boasted about yet secretly resented, I still found myself cleaning up their messes. At exactly 7:05 p.m., I pulled into their suburban driveway, arriving fashionably late enough to test my mother's patience but not enough to spark one of her meltdowns. As I approached, I caught flickers of movement through the living room window, hushed voices mingling in the air. A surprise party. How predictable. Taking a steadying breath, I pressed the doorbell. It swung open almost instantly, revealing Nina, perfectly polished as always, her favorite, "I'm up to something," smile firmly in place. "Surprise!" A chorus of voices rang out as I stepped inside. Relatives emerged from various hiding spots, their expressions eerily reminiscent of sharks circling their prey. "Oh my goodness," I gasped, putting on the carefully practiced look of astonishment I had perfected over years of enduring their schemes. "You shouldn't have." "Nothing's too good for my baby girl," Nina cooed, enveloping me in a lavender-scented hug that lingered a fraction too long. 30 is such a special birthday. "I'm 29, Mom." "Details, details." She waved a dismissive hand. "Edmund, bring Valerie a drink." Like clockwork, my father appeared, holding out a glass of what seemed to be an expensive scotch. "Here you go, princess. Your favorite." I had never liked scotch. He knew that. Across the room, my brother Jasper stood stiffly near the fireplace, eyes darting away from mine. That's when I saw it, a legal-looking document, strategically placed on the coffee table, its edge peeking out from beneath a magazine. "Come sit," Nina urged, guiding me toward the couch. "Everyone's here to celebrate you." I swept my gaze over the room. Aunt Margaret, Uncle Pete, cousins I hadn't seen in years, all sporting identical forced smiles. The only genuine face in the crowd belonged to my best friend, Reagan, who had somehow been dragged into this charade. She caught my eye and arched a questioning brow. "Before we cut the cake," Nina announced, her voice overly bright, "we thought we'd start with presents." "The biggest one first," Edmund chimed in, shifting the magazine aside, fully revealing the document underneath. My pulse quickened, but I maintained my carefully constructed smile. "What's this?" "Oh, just some routine paperwork about Grandma Sophia's inheritance," Nina said too casually. "Nothing to worry about tonight. We'll handle it later." But I had already caught the bolded title. Inheritance Agreement. "Actually," I said, picking up the document, "since everyone's here, maybe we should go over it now." For a fleeting second, Nina's smile wavered. "No, no, darling," she countered, her voice smoothing over the tension. "Let's have fun first. Edmund, pour the champagne." "Mom, you know I prefer handling business before pleasure." I began flipping open the folder, my gaze locked onto hers. "Valerie," she snapped, then quickly adjusted her tone, softening it into something more coaxing. "It's your party. Don't you want to enjoy it?" Jasper, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke up. "Maybe we should just—" "Not now," Nina cut him off sharply. I stood, gripping the document in hand. What exactly am I looking at here? The room fell silent, uncomfortably silent. Nina and Edmund exchanged glances, and I could practically hear the calculations running in their minds, scrambling to pivot. "It's just a formality, really," Edmund said smoothly. "Something the lawyers need for Grandma's estate. Nothing urgent." "Then why is it here at my surprise party?" Nina let out a high, nervous laugh. "Why are you being so suspicious, darling? Can't we just celebrate?" I scanned the room, taking in the faces watching our exchange like spectators at a tennis match. My family. The people who were supposed to be my strongest supporters, yet had always treated me like their personal ATM. In the corner, Reagan subtly shook her head, a silent warning. Of course we can celebrate, I said finally, placing the document back on the table, but keeping my hand firmly on it. But first, I think we should discuss why you really gathered everyone here tonight. The silence that followed was suffocating. Nina's polished smile faltered, revealing the desperation underneath. And in that moment, I realized whatever was inside this folder was about to change everything. Valerie, darling, she said sweetly, reaching for the document, let's not make a scene. I pulled it closer, my heartbeat hammering in my chest, though my voice remained steady. Oh, Mum, I think it's a little late for that. A toast. Edmund's voice boomed through the tension-filled room, a blatant attempt at distraction. To my beautiful daughter, who's always been so practical about these things. I watched as he raised his glass, his hand trembling ever so slightly. The document in my lap felt impossibly heavy as the room echoed in forced unison. To Valerie. Nina moved with practiced grace, setting a plate in front of me. Chocolate cake with buttercream frosting, my supposed favorite. I'm allergic to dairy. Sweetheart, she purred, tone dripping with forced affection. Why don't we all just enjoy ourselves first? The paperwork can wait. Actually, I said, flipping open the folder, I'm quite interested in reading this now. Jasper appeared at my side, shifting nervously. Sis, maybe Mom's right. Let's just read it out loud, Reagan interjected from across the room, her voice calm but firm. Since it's just a formality, right? Nina shot her a glare sharp enough to freeze hell. Ignoring it, I cleared my throat and began to read. I, Valerie, hereby voluntarily relinquish all rights to the inheritance left by Sophia Olson. My voice trailed off as my eyes darted over the rest of the document. My stomach turned. You want me to sign away my entire inheritance? It's not like that, Edmund interrupted quickly. We're just redistributing it for tax purposes. Tax purposes? I let out a short, humorless laugh. By giving everything to you and Mom? The atmosphere shifted. Aunt Margaret suddenly found her wine glass extremely fascinating. Uncle Pete busied himself checking his phone. My cousins shifted uncomfortably in their seats. We're family, Nina said, slipping into that well-rehearsed, guilt-inducing tone she had perfected over the years. Everything we have is shared, you know that. Like when you shared the money I lent you for Jasper's startup, I shot back. Or when you shared the truth about Dad's gambling debts. The room fell into an even heavier silence. That's different, Nina snapped, her mask slipping. No, I corrected her. You've taken everything. And now you want Grandma's inheritance too. Jasper stepped forward, looking miserable. Val, please, just sign it. They won't stop until you do. Is that why you're here, Jasper? To convince me? He couldn't meet my gaze. They said it would be better coming from me. Of course they did. I exhaled sharply, standing up with the document still clutched in my hands. How long have you all been planning this? Waiting for the perfect moment to ambush me? Nobody's ambushing anyone, Edmund protested weakly. We're celebrating your birthday. My birthday is next month. Nina's carefully crafted composure cracked further. Just sign the damn paper, Valerie. Stop being so difficult. Difficult? I laughed again, the sound bordering on hysterical. Is that what you call refusing to be manipulated? You ungrateful little... Nina caught herself, quickly smoothing her expression back into a practiced smile. Darling, you're making everyone uncomfortable. Good. I turned, sweeping my gaze across the room. Did all of you know about this? Were you all in on it? The heavy silence was answer enough. Reagan stood abruptly. I didn't know, and this is disgusting. Stay out of this, Nina snapped, her voice ice cold. This is family business. Family? I scoffed. Is that what you call this? A group of enablers and conspirators? Edmund took a step forward, his attempt at a fatherly, authoritative tone almost laughable. Princess, your mother and I have discussed this thoroughly. It's for the best. The best for whom, Dad? You? Your bookie? His face reddened. That's enough. No, it's not nearly enough. I strode toward the fireplace, holding up the document for all to see. You want to know what I think about this agreement? Nina's eyes widened in horror. Don't you dare! I held the corner of the page to the flame, watching as it ignited. I think it can burn in hell. You stupid girl! Nina shrieked, lunging toward me. Do you have any idea what you've done? I let the burning paper drop into the fireplace, embers curling at the edges as it disintegrated into ash. I know exactly what I've done. I'm done being your personal bank account. There are copies, Edmund threatened, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. Good, I replied, grabbing my purse. Keep them as souvenirs of the day your plan failed. Reagan was already at my side, keys in hand. Let's go. As we reached the door, Jasper called out, Val, wait. Save it, I cut him off. You can tell them about Grandma's video message, the one they don't know about yet. The look of shock on Nina's face was almost worth the entire ordeal. Almost. What video? She demanded, her voice sharp with panic. What is she talking about? I paused at the doorway, savoring the moment. I guess you'll find out soon enough. Happy early birthday to me. Reagan chuckled, sliding a steaming mug of coffee across her kitchen counter. You should have seen Nina's face when you mentioned the video. I thought she was going to explode. It was nearly midnight, and the adrenaline from earlier was finally wearing off. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug, trying to steady their slight tremor. I can't believe they actually tried to pull this off, I muttered, shaking my head. Actually, no, I can totally believe it. Reagan leaned forward, eyes glinting with curiosity. So, what's on this video that had your mom looking like she'd seen a ghost? I pulled out my phone, unlocking it with a swipe. Grandma Sophia sent this to me through her lawyer 2 days before she passed away. Reagan leaned in closer as I pressed play. My grandmother's face filled the screen, her silver hair neatly styled even from her hospital bed. My dearest Valerie. Her familiar voice crackled through the speaker. If you're watching this, I'm already gone. And if I know your mother, which, unfortunately, I do, she's already trying to get her hands on what I've left you. Holy shit, Reagan whispered. There's more, I said, turning up the volume. I've watched how they've used you over the years, Grandma Sophia continued. How they've drained you, financially, emotionally. Nina was the same with me, always taking, never giving. That's why I've made certain arrangements. The video continued, revealing my grandmother's carefully crafted plans. With each revelation, Reagan's eyes grew wider. Your grandmother was a genius, she breathed when the video ended. An absolute genius. She knew them better than they knew themselves. I took a slow sip of coffee. But now I need to figure out my next move. My phone buzzed, another text from Nina. We need to talk about what you said. Call me immediately. Reagan, seeing me stare at the message, shook her head. Don't. You know it's just another trap. Oh, I'm not calling her. I started typing a response. All communication goes through Linda from now on. Linda, the family lawyer? Reagan asked. Grandma's lawyer, I corrected. And apparently my new best ally. We're meeting tomorrow morning. Reagan studied me for a moment. You're different tonight. Stronger. I exhaled. I'm tired. Tired of being their safety net. Tired of the manipulation. Did you know Dad asked me to co-sign a loan for his business venture last month? Please tell me you didn't. I almost did, I admitted. But then I found out it was for a poker tournament in Vegas. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Jasper. They're losing it here. Mom's talking about contesting the will. What video were you talking about? Reagan peered over at my phone. Your brother reaching out. That's new. I shook my head. He's probably just doing their dirty work again. I typed back. Tell Mom to save her energy. She might need it. Reagan smirked. Cryptic. I like it. Another message popped up, this time from an unknown number. This is Linda. Can we move our meeting to 8 a.m.? Things are escalating faster than expected. See? I showed Reagan the message. Even Linda knows they're going to try something. What do you think they'll do? I sighed. Knowing Nina, everything and anything. I replied to Linda, confirming the earlier meeting time. She once faked a heart attack to get me to pay for her spa retreat. Reagan's jaw dropped. No way. Way. Called me from the emergency room and everything. Turned out she was at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Reagan shook her head in disbelief. And you're sure about this plan? Once you start, there's no going back. I played the video one more time, listening to my grandmother's final words. Remember, darling, sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to stop enabling them. You're stronger than you know. Make them see that. I closed the video. I'm sure. For once in my life, I'm absolutely sure. My phone lit up again. More messages. Nina, Edmund, even Aunt Margaret trying to play mediator. I silenced them all. You can stay here tonight, Reagan offered. You shouldn't be alone. Thanks, but I need to go home and prepare for tomorrow. I stood up, gathering my things. I have years of financial records to go through before I meet with Linda. Want me to come with you to the meeting? Reagan asked. I hugged her tightly. No, this is something I need to do alone, but keep your phone on. Something tells me tomorrow is going to be interesting. As I drove home, my grandmother's words echoed in my mind. For years, I had been their safety net, their bank, their emotional punching bag. But now, thanks to Sophia's foresight, I had the power to change everything. My phone buzzed one final time. Another message from Jasper. Whatever you're planning, just be careful, okay? You know how they get? I did know. And for the first time, that knowledge didn't fill me with dread. Instead, I felt something new. Anticipation. Linda's office felt like a fortress of mahogany and law degrees. At exactly 8 a.m., she closed the door behind me, checking twice to ensure it was locked. Your mother called me 17 times last night, she said, settling behind her desk. Your father even tried to visit my house. That sounds about right. I placed my folder of financial records on her desk. Did they threaten you? Linda's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. Nina attempted to fire me. I raised an eyebrow. She seems to have forgotten that I was your grandmother's lawyer, not hers. Classic Nina. I leaned forward. So, what's our next move? Linda pulled out a thick file. Your grandmother was meticulous in her planning. She knew exactly what your parents would try to do. The video message was just at the beginning, wasn't it? Sophia recorded that video as insurance. But the real protection is in the terms of the inheritance. Linda flipped open the file. Have you watched the entire video? Not yet. I only played the first few minutes. Watch it now. All of it. I pulled out my phone and resumed the video from where I had left off. Grandma Sophia's face appeared on the screen, her expression more serious than before. Valerie, my dear, here's what I've done, she said. The inheritance is structured in a way that makes it impossible for Nina or Edmund to access it, even through you. Every penny is locked in a trust with specific conditions. Linda paused the video. This is where it gets interesting. The conditions? I asked. What are they? Linda skimmed the documents. Your grandmother stipulated that the money can only be used for 3 things: your personal living expenses, charitable donations to verified organizations, or investment in businesses that have no connection to your family members. I sat back, stunned. She thought of everything. There's more. Linda pressed play again. If anyone in the family attempts to contest these conditions, Grandma Sophia continued, or if they try to pressure you into sharing the inheritance, a clause activates that automatically donates 50% of the total amount to charity. My breath caught in my throat. Oh my God, I whispered. Linda stopped the video and leaned back in her chair. Your grandmother was quite thorough, she said. She also left me specific instructions for handling your family's inevitable reaction. Which will be nuclear when they find out, I muttered. Precisely. That's why we need to plan this carefully. Linda pulled out another document. I've prepared a formal letter outlining the terms. We'll send it to them today. They'll try to fight it. They can try, Linda said, her expression hardening. But the more they fight, the more money goes to charity. It's legally ironclad. My phone buzzed again. Nina. I turned the screen toward Linda. Perfect timing, she said. Let's give them a preview, I answered on speaker. Hello, Mom. Don't you hello, Mom me. Nina's voice filled the room. Where are you? We need to talk about your behavior last night. I'm with Linda right now. A pause. Put her on the phone. You're on speaker, Linda said smoothly. Nina, she continued, her voice tight, what nonsense have you been telling my daughter? I demand to see Sophia's full will immediately. Of course, Linda replied. I'm sending it to you today, along with a detailed explanation of the trust conditions. Trust conditions? Nina's voice pitched higher. What trust conditions? The ones Grandma Sophia put in place, I said. The ones that make it impossible for you or Dad to ever touch this money. That's ridiculous. I'm her mother. I have rights. Actually, Linda interjected, her tone crisp, you don't. And any attempt to contest these conditions will result in an automatic charitable donation of 50% of the inheritance. The silence on the other end stretched. Mum, I prompted, this is your grandmother's revenge, isn't it? Nina's voice turned cold. She always was a spiteful old woman. No, Mum, this is her protection for me. Protection? She let out a bitter laugh. From what? Your own family? From exactly this reaction, I said. Check your email in an hour. Everything will be explained in the letter. Valerie, don't you dare! I ended the call. Linda exhaled, setting her phone down. Well, that went about as expected. What happens now? Now we wait for them to receive the letter. She handed me a USB drive. This contains everything else your grandmother wanted you to have. Financial records, personal messages, evidence of past loans and manipulations. I turned the small drive over in my palm. Evidence? Sophia kept detailed records of every time they took advantage of you, every loan, every guilt trip, every scheme. Linda met my eyes. She wanted you to have proof in case you ever doubted yourself. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the tiny object in my hand. She really did think of everything. She did. Linda stood. Are you ready for what comes next? Because once they get that letter, I'm ready, I said, rising to my feet. For the first time in my life, I'm actually ready. 3 days after Linda sent the letter, Nina showed up at my office. Through the glass walls, I watched as she charmed her way past reception, dressed in her most expensive suit and carrying what appeared to be lunch from my so-called favorite restaurant. Darling, she breezed in before I could stop her. I brought your favorite, that mushroom risotto you love. I'm allergic to mushrooms, Mom. Always have been. She waved a hand dismissively, setting the bag down. Oh, is that right? Well, no matter. We need to talk. Everything that needs to be said was in Linda's letter. About that, Nina said, perching herself on the edge of my desk. Your father and I have been thinking. Perhaps we all overreacted. I kept typing, not bothering to look up. Did you now? We understand you're upset. We could have handled things better at the party. She reached out to touch my hand, but I pulled away. Surely we can find a compromise. There is no compromise. The terms are clear. Terms can be changed, darling. Laws can be interpreted. Finally, I looked at her. Any attempt to challenge the terms results in half the inheritance going to charity. Is that clear enough for you? Don't be difficult, Valerie, she said, her voice taking on that all-too-familiar edge. We're your parents. Everything we've done has been for you. My phone buzzed. A text from Jasper. Mum's there, isn't she? Dad sent her. I exhaled, then held up my phone, scrolling through years of bank transfers. Was it for me when you took out credit cards in my name? Or when you guilted me into paying for Jasper's failed restaurants? Family helps family, she said stiffly. Is that what you call it? I pulled up more records. Like when you told me Dad needed money for surgery, but it actually went to his bookie. Her expression hardened. You've been keeping tabs on us? Number Grandma Sophia did. She kept every receipt, every bank statement, every desperate voicemail you left me asking for money. Nina's face darkened. That interfering old... She caught herself, exhaling sharply. Your grandmother never understood our family dynamic. I laughed. Our family dynamic? You mean where I'm the ATM and you're the perpetual withdrawer? Nina stood, smoothing the non-existent wrinkles in her designer skirt. I can see you're not in a reasonable mood today. But think about this carefully, darling. Do you really want to destroy our family over money? You already did that, Mom. Years ago. Don't be dramatic. She pulled an envelope from her purse and placed it on my desk. Your father had our lawyer draw up a new agreement, something that benefits everyone. I didn't touch it. Did you not understand Linda's letter? Any attempt to circumvent Grandma's wishes triggers the charity clause. Unless I voluntarily agree to share. Her lips curled into a triumphant smile. Exactly. We found a loophole. There are no loopholes. I pressed the intercom button. Security, please escort someone out. Her expression twisted into something ugly before she smoothed it over again. Valerie, think about what you're doing. I didn't even look up from my computer. I have, for years. Goodbye, Mom. This isn't over, she hissed as 2 security guards arrived at the door. Your father will be in touch. The moment she was gone, my phone buzzed again. Jasper. How bad was it? I typed back. She brought mushroom risotto. Jasper. Ouch. You're allergic to mushrooms. Exactly. Another text popped up, this time from Edmund. Princess, let's discuss this over dinner tonight. Your choice of restaurant. I turned my phone toward Reagan, who had been quietly watching from the corner of my office. They're not giving up, are they? She asked. Number. But they're getting desperate. I forwarded Edmund's message to Linda, which means they'll make mistakes. What's your next move? Reagan asked. I pulled up my calendar. Dad wants dinner? Fine, but it'll be on my terms. You're actually going? Yes. I typed out a response to Edmund. Because he needs to see that I'm not that scared little girl anymore, and because Linda and I have something planned. What kind of something? Reagan asked, eyes narrowing. I smiled, thinking of the USB drive sitting in my desk drawer. Let's just say Grandma Sophia left me more than just money. She left me the truth about everything they've done, and tomorrow night Dad's going to get a preview. Reagan's expression turned serious. Be careful. Cornered animals are the most dangerous. I know. I glanced at the framed family photo on my desk, taken years ago before I truly understood what they were. But I'm done being careful. It's time to be brave. My phone lit up with Edmund's reply. Wonderful, Princess. Name the place. I typed back. The Capitol Grill, 7 p.m. Come alone. Then I added, and Dad, don't bother bringing any documents this time. I have plenty of my own to share. The Capitol Grill was Edmund's kind of place, expensive enough to make him feel important, with private booths perfect for conducting business. I arrived 15 minutes early, setting up my laptop and arranging the documents Linda had prepared. At exactly 7 p.m., Edmund walked in, wearing his lucky deal-making tie. Princess, you look lovely. Hi, Dad. I didn't stand for his usual hug. Please, sit. His smile faltered slightly when he noticed my laptop. I thought we could just have a nice dinner, father and daughter. We will, right after we discuss a few things. The waiter appeared, and Edmund ordered his usual scotch. Make it a double. Just water for me, I said. I need to stay clear-headed. Always so serious, he chuckled nervously. You know, your mother was quite upset after your meeting today. Was she upset about bringing me food I'm allergic to? Or about trying to circumvent Grandma's wishes? He shifted uncomfortably. About that. Let me stop you right there. I opened my laptop. Before you continue, there's something you need to see. Valerie, please, can't we just... Remember last year when you said you needed $50,000 for emergency gallbladder surgery? His face paled. That's ancient history. I turned the laptop toward him, displaying a series of bank transfers. Funny how these transfers match exactly with your bookie's payment schedule. His jaw tightened. How did you... Grandma Sophia kept records of everything. I pulled out more documents. Like this loan for Jasper's third restaurant, which somehow ended up in your offshore account. His expression darkened. That's private information. No, Dad, that's fraud. I laid out more papers. Just like the credit cards you and Mom opened in my name when I was in college. Edmund's hand trembled slightly as he reached for his scotch. We were protecting you, building your credit. By maxing them out and leaving me with the debt, we paid those back. After I threatened to go to the police, I pulled up another file. Should we talk about the mortgage payments I made on your house? The ones you said were temporary but somehow became permanent? Enough, he growled, slamming his hand on the table. The glasses rattled and several heads turned in our direction. You're right, I said calmly. It is enough. That's why Grandma put those conditions in place. His face twisted. Your grandmother was a manipulative old woman who saw exactly what you and Mom were doing to me, I finished, turning the laptop back around, and who left me everything I need to prove it. Edmund's expression flickered through anger, fear, and calculation before settling into his familiar negotiation smile. Princess, surely we can work something out. Family helps family, remember? That's exactly what Mom said today. Because it's true. Everything we did for you. I pulled up one final document on my laptop. Like when you took out a life insurance policy on me without my knowledge. The color drained from Edmund's face. That's not... I can explain. Save it. I closed the laptop. Here's what's going to happen. You and Mom are going to stop trying to get around Grandma's conditions. No more surprise visits. No more legal loopholes. No more guilt trips. His expression hardened. Or what? I met his gaze. All these documents go to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Edmund exhaled sharply, sitting back in his chair, deflated. You'd do that to your own father? You did this to yourself, Dad. You and Mom both. The waiter returned to take our order. Edmund waved him away. I've lost my appetite, he muttered. That's fine. I have dinner plans with Reagan anyway. I started packing up my things. Oh, and one more thing. I'm donating 20% of the inheritance to gambling addiction programs. Consider it your contribution to society. Edmund's jaw clenched. Nina will never accept this. Nina doesn't have a choice. I stood up. Neither do you. As I turned to leave, his voice stopped me. We're still your parents. I glanced back at him, but I no longer saw the intimidating figure from my childhood. I saw a desperate man who had just lost his last play. Yes, you are, I said softly. That's what makes this so sad. Walking out of the restaurant, I texted Linda. It's done. Dad knows. Her reply came quickly. Nina's already called twice. Are you ready for tomorrow? I thought about the final phase of our plan, the family meeting where everything would come to a head. Ready as I'll ever be, I typed back. Is the video prepared? Everything's in place. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., they'll all learn exactly what Sophia had planned. I got into my car, catching a glimpse of Edmund still sitting inside, staring into his empty Scotch glass. See you tomorrow, I texted Linda. Time to end this once and for all. Linda's conference room felt smaller with my entire family crammed inside. Nina sat stiffly at one end of the table, her lips pressed into a thin line. Edmund slumped beside her, still nursing a hangover from the night before. Jasper had chosen a seat halfway between them and me, like he couldn't decide whose side to take. Let's begin, Linda said, closing the door. We're here to discuss the final terms of Sophia's inheritance. We're here, Nina interrupted, her voice dripping with venom, because my daughter has lost her mind. Actually, I said, picking up the remote, we're here to watch something. I pressed a button. The lights dimmed and Grandma Sophia's face appeared on the screen, larger than life. If you're watching this, she began, it means my family has done exactly what I expected them to do. Nina shot up from her chair. I don't have to listen to this. Sit down, Linda commanded, her tone razor sharp. Or the 50% charity clause activates immediately. My mother's lips pressed together, but she sank back into her chair, fuming. Sophia's recording continued. My disappointing daughter. I've watched you manipulate and exploit your own child the same way you tried to exploit me. Did you think I didn't know about the credit cards, the fake emergencies, the endless demands for money? Edmund reached for Nina's hand, but she pulled away. And Edmund, Sophia's voice hardened, enabling your wife's schemes while adding your own, gambling away your daughter's generosity, lying about medical emergencies, treating her like your personal bank." "This is slander," Edmund muttered. Sophia's voice didn't waver. "Every word I'm saying is documented. Every loan, every lie, every manipulation." The screen changed to show a series of documents. "The entire inheritance has been placed in an irrevocable trust," Sophia's recorded voice continued. "Valerie is the sole beneficiary, with ironclad conditions preventing any family member from accessing the funds. Any attempt to challenge these conditions will result in automatic charitable donations." "We know all this," Nina snapped. "Get to the point." "The point, Nina, is that I'm not finished." Sophia's face reappeared on the screen. "Valerie, my dear, open the envelope Linda just handed you." I broke the seal and pulled out a single document. "Read it aloud," Linda instructed. I took a breath and began. "I, Sophia Olson, hereby declare that in addition to the monetary inheritance, all controlling shares in Harvey Industries are to be transferred to Valerie Harvey, effective immediately." Nina's scream could probably be heard 3 floors down. "The company! You're giving her the company! Your father's company! The one you and Edmund have been systematically destroying with your mismanagement and embezzlement." Sophia's voice continued from the screen. Jasper finally spoke up, his voice tight. "Is that true? Have you been stealing from the company?" "Of course not," Edmund protested, but his face told a different story. Linda calmly placed folders in front of us. "The proof is all here. Every unauthorized transfer, every falsified report." And suddenly, it all clicked. "This is why you've been so desperate," I realized. "The inheritance wasn't just about Grandma's money. You needed it to cover up what you've been doing at the company." "You don't understand," Nina pleaded, her composure finally cracking. "We had expenses, obligations." "Like your gambling debts?" Jasper asked Edmund. "Or Mom's shopping addiction?" "Jasper!" Nina gasped. "How dare you? How dare I what?" "Tell the truth?" He moved his chair closer to mine. "I'm done covering for you both." Linda's voice was steady and firm. "As of now, Valerie has full control of Harvey Industries. Any corporate credit cards or accounts you have access to have been frozen." "You can't do this," Edmund stammered. "I'm the CEO." "Not anymore." I stood up. "Your resignation letter is in that folder. Sign it, or face an internal audit that will lead to criminal charges." Nina lunged for the documents, but Linda was quicker, pulling them away before she could snatch them. "This isn't over," Nina hissed. "Then 50% goes to charity," I reminded her. "And the company records go to the SEC." The fight seemed to drain out of her all at once. Edmund just stared at the resignation letter, his hand shaking. "Sign it, Dad," Jasper said quietly. "It's over." With a defeated sigh, Edmund scrawled his signature on the document. Sophia's voice filled the room one last time. "Remember, Nina, you taught Valerie everything she knows about family loyalty. And Edmund, you showed her exactly what happens when trust is betrayed. Consider this her graduation from your masterclass in manipulation." I picked up the signed resignation letter. "Linda will be in touch about transitional arrangements. For now, I think we're done here." As I reached the door, Nina's voice called out, "Valerie, we're still your parents." I turned back one last time, looking at them, the people who should have protected me but instead used me until there was nothing left to take. "Yes, you are," I said softly. "And that's the saddest part of all." "You could have just been my parents," I said quietly. "But you chose to be something else entirely." The door closed behind me, leaving them with nothing but the echo of Sophia's final words and the wreckage of their own making. The morning sun streamed through the windows of my grandmother's old office at Harvey Industries. I sat in her chair, running my fingers over the worn leather armrests, remembering how she used to let me spin in it when I visited as a child. A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. "Come in." Jasper entered, carrying 2 coffee cups. "Thought you might need this. First board meeting and all." "Thanks." I accepted the cup, noticing how different he looked in a proper suit instead of his usual chef's whites. "Ready for your new role?" "Head of Corporate Social Responsibility," he said, smiling. "Never thought I'd say this, but yeah, feels right." Better than running failed restaurants with Dad's stolen money. Jasper exhaled. About that. He sat down across from me. I had no idea where that money really came from. I should have asked more questions. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Nina. Your father's in the hospital. Please, call. Jasper took one look at my face. Let me guess. Mom's trying the medical emergency trick again? I turned the screen toward him. Dad's in the hospital. He pulled out his phone, checking something. He's at the Golden Nugget in Vegas. I saw his credit card alert this morning. I raised an eyebrow. You still have access to his cards? Only the alerts. Figured we should keep tabs on them. He hesitated. Have you heard from Linda? She's finished processing their termination paperwork. All company assets have been recovered. I pulled up an email. Though, apparently, Mom tried to empty the corporate apartment before security arrived. Jasper let out a dry laugh. Classic Nina. He shook his head, looking out the window. You know, I always wondered why Grandma Sophia spent so much time teaching you about the business. Now I get it. She knew what they were doing long before we did. I stood and walked toward the window, the city stretching out beneath us. The question is, what do we do now? The intercom buzzed. Miss Harvey, my assistant's voice came through. The board members are ready. Show them in, I replied, straightening my jacket. The boardroom filled quickly, old men in expensive suits, their expressions cautious, some skeptical. I could see the same dismissive glances Nina and Edmund used to give me. Good morning, I began, standing at the head of the table. I know many of you worked with my father and grandmother. Today, we're going to discuss some changes. I clicked through my presentation, outlining the new direction for Harvey Industries, ethical business practices, employee profit sharing, community investment. With each slide, I watched their skepticism shift into interest. Finally, I concluded, we're establishing the Sophia Olson Foundation for Financial Literacy and Family Counseling. 20% of our annual profits will fund programs helping families break cycles of financial abuse. The room erupted in discussion. Jasper caught my eye and nodded. Grandma had given me the tools. Now I was going to build something better. My phone buzzed again, this time from Reagan. They're here. I turned to the board. If you'll excuse me, there's something I need to handle personally. In the lobby, Nina and Edmund stood at the security desk, arguing with the guards. They looked smaller somehow, less imposing than I remembered. Let them up, I instructed. The moment they spotted me, Nina rushed forward. Finally, you're being reasonable. Stop. I held up my hand. I'm not changing my mind. I'm not giving you money. I'm not reversing any decisions. Then why let us in? Edmund demanded. To give you these. I handed each of them an envelope. Inside, you'll find information about gambling addiction support groups and financial counseling services. The foundation will cover all costs. Nina scoffed. We don't need charity. No, I said, stepping back. You need help. Real help. Their faces hardened. When you're ready to accept it, call Linda. Until then, we have nothing to discuss. Edmund tried one last time, his voice slipping into that familiar, well-rehearsed guilt trip tone. You'd abandon your own parents? I met his eyes, steady and calm. No, Dad. I'm trying to save them from themselves. Then I turned and walked away. The choice is yours. Back in my office, Jasper and Reagan were waiting. Reagan had slipped in during the confrontation. How'd it go? She asked. I exhaled, setting my phone down. About as expected. I picked up a framed photo from my desk. Not the old family portrait with Nina and Edmund, but a new one. Me, Jasper, and Reagan at the beach, laughing. But for the first time, I feel like I did the right thing. Grandma Sophia would be proud, Jasper said. Speaking of which, I reached into my desk drawer, pulling out 3 champagne flutes and a bottle of champagne. She left this bottle for today, specifically. As we toasted, I looked at the people around me, my brother, who had found his way back, my best friend, who never left, and the legacy of a grandmother who taught me that sometimes the strongest love means saying no. To Sophia, Reagan said, raising her glass. To freedom, Jasper added. I smiled. To new beginnings. Through the window, I watched Nina and Edmund leave the building, the envelopes still in their hands. Maybe someday they'd understand. Maybe they wouldn't. But for the first time in my life, their choices were no longer my burden to bear.